What we're going to do is talk to you about Web3-a-thon. We're just zooming through these. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to talk to you about Web3-a-thon. Why did we create this event? What's the big idea? So if you have been in Web3 for even a hot second, if you're at this conference, you've probably heard about some of the amazing things Web3 can do. This technology is incredible. It's whether you're talking about DeFi and how it can create financial independence for people who've been excluded by our financial system, or if you're talking about the immutability of the blockchain, allowing us to fix the system that we use to track carbon credits, the future is really bright. But if we look at the way the industry is today, it's not exactly what we thought it would be. First, it's kind of hard to even understand what's going on because there's so much jargon. There's a ton of public skepticism because there's so many scams. And there's really not the use cases we were told would happen when we talked about Web3. And so that's where CRADL comes in. We ask ourselves, why is there a disconnect? CRADL's CRADL's vision is to champion a humanity-centric Web3 that's for everyone. And we do this by clearing a path for an equitable Web3 where people and communities are at its center. And the way we do this is by making stuff. We're not a lab that's just sending out reports. We do reports, but we don't just do that. We also create interventions that change how the industry operates. So that's the reason that we partnered with CoinDesk to make Web3-a-thon. We think that this is the moment that the industry needs a hyper-local hackathon, and why we think your participation is important, not just for you to launch your project, but, and I really believe this, for the future of humanity. And I know that sounds kind of nuts, but we need to make Web3 a place for everyone so that we can see the world we want. One of CRADL's first questions was trying to understand, how are crypto products made? We did a ton of research, and this is what led us to understanding the role that developer communities play in the Web3 ecosystem and the importance of hackathons in building those communities. Hackathons predate Web3 by decades, but hackathons in Web3 are actually different than this from their Web2 predecessors. First, there are so many of them. There are entire DAOs created just to keep track of hackathons and host hackathons. There are spreadsheets and communities and teams that travel around to make these happen and to participate. And the second is that there's a lot of money in these hackathons. Ellis Norman, who's the VP of Sales at Hacker Earth, they're our turnkey partner for Web3-a-thon, he says that the prizes for crypto hackathons are actually 5 to 10 times larger than those of their enterprise counterparts. So the reason, though, that hackathons are such a big phenomenon in Web3 is because they serve two important purposes. The first is that they help you learn the technology. It's really confusing in Web3. It's pretty complicated, and hackathons give the opportunity to sit down with experts to understand that better. And the second, companies are platforms. They need developers to build on their protocols in order to give them utility. So our research into hackathons is what we use to inform how we designed Web3-a-thon. Hackathons take a ton of forms. There's a ton of information online, so we experienced them in person and digitally, and we learned two big things. The first is that the barriers to participate in hackathons are really high. They're not super inviting, I think, for a wide variety of demographics, but I think it's an important time to talk about how they're not inviting for people who aren't cis men. I know we're not the first person to talk about the gender disparity in tech, but at one of the hackathons I went to, there were 100 participants, and I was one of 2 women in the room, and I was not even participating. The time commitments are also not super realistic. If you think of the quintessential hackathon, right, where it's a 3-day weekend, you're staying up all night with your buddies trying to solve these problems, super fun, but if you have kids, if you have a job that requires you to work over the weekends, it's just not realistic. The culture is also kind of unapproachable. I know that Web3 is fun. I love to greet someone with GM as much as the next gal, and I love to hodl, but if you think about a Discord, I know all of you have been in a Discord where you were like, what the heck is going on? And that's not ideal, but if it's happening at a hackathon, it really means you're not going to participate. One of the attendees we talked to asked his daughter to proofread his first message and introductions 3 times. And even then, he could not find anyone to join his team. It's also pretty much only for developers. If you look at the way it's marketed, registration flows that ask you what type of software engineer you are, it's pretty clear you're supposed to know how to write code to participate. And not just that, it's really just for Web3. If you look at the front page of a hackathon and it's covered in DeFi and NFT and all this stuff, and you can't even understand the words on the page, what's going to make you think that event is one for you? It makes sense that in the last decade, we've spent time developing the technology, and developers have been the people to get us to where we are today. But it's time for that to change. The utility of blockchain is going to come from people who understand the problems they're trying to solve, and everyone needs to feel welcome to build in Web3. The second thing we learned is that the education at hackathons is tech-centric, not human-centric. If you think of the product development cycle, you can think of it as 3 steps. You listen to what people have to say, you think about ways you might change their problem, and then you build the products that are going to solve that problem. But hackathons really focus on build. You can tell because SDKs or software developer kits are pretty much the key resource that hackathons provide. And if you look at hackathon submission requirements, there's always a GitHub repo and maybe a deck that your team decided to start 2 hours before the submission was due. But the message is clear: ship that code. The thing that's really amazing, though, is that every single person I talk to about why they attended a hackathon pretty much says, I want to learn something. So we have the opportunity to teach people not just how to build code. We could teach them a better way to build products, a way to build products that are useful and equitable. And when you think about cryptocurrency, the stakes are pretty high. We're talking about people's life savings, their path to financial freedom, their identity, like global warming. There's so much to think about. Maybe it's worth it to spend some time listening before we jump straight to build. So that's why CRADL partnered with CoinDesk to produce Web3-a-thon. And there are 5 things that we did to make Web3-a-thon really special. The first thing is that Web3-a-thon is a 3-month totally virtual event, so that anyone, anywhere in the world can participate on their time. We also are making Web3 less scary for people who know nothing about it. We're really excited to be partnering with Women Build Web3 to promote 30 Days of Web3 that launched on June 27th, which is their course to help Web2 devs go step by step to building the blockchain for the first time. We're also helping participants understand why they're building before they build it. Web3-a-thon is 3 months because the first 2 months are dedicated to helping people understand our hyperlocal challenges in detail. It's why we have so much programming over the next 2 days dedicated to understanding those challenges and to learn more about the technology before they commit to the one that they want to build. And then the last month, they get hyper-curated resources from the chains they choose to build on in order to bring their product to life. We're also contributing human stories so that participants can listen, and the SDKs so that they can build, obviously. We've brought in policy and financial experts to help craft the story around our hyperlocal themes, and we've actually partnered with the city of Austin. I don't know if Daniel or Charles are here, but they produced these stories about the history of these themes in Austin as an example for how people can explore these themes and how their community is impacted. And we're also providing thought-provoking leadership, or provoking thought leadership that reflects the diversity that we know needs to exist in Web3. We have so many amazing partners that are going to be speaking and participating in this event over the next 2 days and over the next 3 months. We've got Impacto in the front row. I see Africa Blockchain Institute out there, Coyote. And we have HerDAO. I'd mentioned these folks earlier, but it's going to be such a delight to see all of them on stage and see the diversity that we've taken the time to curate so that you can imagine how you could build in Web3. Our belief is that by having a better process, we can build better products. But better can mean a lot of things, but we think the most important thing is that they become more equitable. If we build a utility without equity, we're going to repeat the same mistakes as Web 2. So all of our programming is deliberately designed to ask everyone and invite them to be conscious and thoughtful about the solutions they're creating. That's why we think Web3-a-thon is a meaningful step in promoting equity in Web 3. That's why CRADL provides interventions that aren't just reports, because we're changing culture and we're inviting people to be part of the conversation. When I say this is a designed event, I really mean that. I worked on this event, and I want to hear what you think about it. If you think anything is strange, if you see a screen or a button or a word, we designed that for you to welcome you in. So let us know what you think. And of course, On behalf of the whole CRADL, CoinDesk, Hackathon, HackerEarth, and CRADL team, we're so excited to welcome you to Web3-a-thon. Definitely register online, enter in the Discord, I'm in there, come chat me up, and the whole CRADL team is happy to talk to you and answer any questions you might have. Thank you so much.